Okay, good morning everyone. How many of you have already done assignment agreement before? Hands? One? Yeah, two? Okay. So assignment agreement is very important, especially nowadays. We have sold so many pre-sales in the past 3 years, right? So there are a lot of pre-sale deals come to the market, and a lot of them are good deals. People who bought 3 years ago, they don't want to complete. Now they're trying to sell to other people who want to buy it. Now you can buy something cheaper for 20% compared to the market value. For example, right now, Metrotown, $1,000 per square foot, right? If you buy a new pre-sale. But if you buy a old pre-sale, you may be able to get $800 per square foot for someone who bought 2-3 years ago. Right, so you can pick up a really good deal. But that, what we call, is assignment. Assignment of contract is something, a transaction that is not being completed yet. It can apply to either house, townhouse, or pre-sale condos. Anything that is not completed yet, and you want to sell this agreement to a third party. Basically, your sale agreement. You're selling a paper. You're not selling a property because the property you do not own yet. Before transaction, you don't own the property, you only own the contract, the paper. So you're selling this paper. And this assignment agreement is for you to draft for your client to sell his paper. Okay? And this will involve a lot of parties. For example, it's involving the developer. It's involving the original seller. It is involving the current, what we call assignee. Assignee in assignment of a contract is same as buyer. Assignee is buyer, okay? Assignor is the seller. Assignor is the person who is holding the original contract. For example, it could be the house seller who sold it to buyer A. Then buyer A become assignor. And then assignee is buyer B. Okay? Same as pre-sale. Developer is original seller. Developer sold it to buyer A, which is assignor, and then your client become assignee, the buyer B. Okay? And there's another thing you have to really be careful is GST. For any new homes, there are GST. But in contract of purchase and sale for assignment, there are 2 GSTs. A lot of people don't know that. There are 2 GSTs. How come CRA has a court case against all developers asking them to provide all assignment agreement? Anyone know why that happened? A lot of them don't know there's another GST involved in assignment contract. So CRA is trying to claim all the GST back from the buyer A, assignor, who did not claim GST when they sold their contract because there was no record of transaction. So CRA has a court and they won. So all developers has to provide to CRA their assignment agreement so they can find this assignor and check if they have paid their GST or not. A lot of people only know GST for assignee because when they transaction the property, there is a new home tax, right? GST on top. That's a 5%. Used to be 12% when we have HST. Right now it's only GST is only 5%. So assignor also has a GST a lot of people don't know about. I will talk about GST later on during the contract. Okay? So for all contract, make sure on the right top here, you know how many pages for total. Page number is always very, very important in agreement. Because when you write assignment contract for developer, like new development, there is what they call addendum. Because you have to write all your subject in the addendum. So contract maybe, like say for example, there are 5 pages, and you have 2 pages addendum. So here you have to fill in total 7 pages, everything included. And then over here is the date of this agreement. So in the future, if you have more addendum, in the addendum on the top, they'll ask you what date of the contract you are referring to. So this is the date that you're referring to, not the acceptance date, not the date on the last page. It's always date on the first page. Make sure you're using the right date. Otherwise, your addendum may not be the right addendum. They may not be able to incorporate into your agreement. Okay? And now we go down. Yeah. Paul had a question.
The date is, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Yeah. So in the future, on the top of addendum, right, there's always saying, asking you, what is the date of the contract you're referring to for this addendum?
Okay.
So that is the date you're referring to. Because in the future, you may have completion date change, or you may have other things changed. You have new addendum. Then you have to have a date saying this addendum is attaching to which contract, and the date is using this date.
Okay.
Okay. And then next, assignor. You must have all the address, name, address, the phone number, postcode, everything for assignor. Now developers are very strict. For assignee, don't put C/O agent. Use assignee full name, no initials, full name, address, and also phone number and occupation. Fill in everything, because each time the developer's assignment team email you back, and then you email them back, this will take maybe at least a week or 2 weeks. So your subject may be only 30 days. If you make one mistake, you may not be able to make within your subject removal date. So make sure you fill in everything here, all the information. Not like just CPS, normally purchase agreement, people just put C/O agent, right? Because you don't want to give out your client's information. But for assignment, make sure you put everything in it, okay? Number 2 here is for developer. You can find developer's information on the original agreement of your purchase for a condo or presale, anything. You have to put in developer's name, address, phone number, and disclosure statement. You have to have these two, disclosure statement and amendments. Disclosure statement. So these two, the date, you have to fill in exact date that you received. You have to check yes here and put a date. For disclosure statement, there's only one, okay? And for amendments, normally when you were able to assign a contract, there is already minimum 2 amendments already. So that means you have to put 2 dates here. If you already have 4 amendments, you have to put 4 dates. Because this box is very small, right? Then you have to download this form and use something like PDF editor to put the date, everything on here. Everything. 4 dates, 5 dates, all the dates you have on here. Okay, if you don't have that, they will email you back telling you to fill in all the dates in the box. This will waste you another week or 2, okay? Make sure you put all the dates in there.
Where do you find these dates?
You can find the date, number 1, from developer, asking them what are the amendment dates, or can you email me all the amendments. And number 2 is from your buyer, if they have all the email record. But buyers are not a very reliable source because they always say, I don't know, right? So developer, email developer and ask for it. Usually they're pretty quick on giving you information. And over here, disclosure statement provided by assignor to assignee, yes or no. So you can pick either yes or no, because you got from developer, that may be no. If you got from assignor, then it's yes, right? And then is there a deposit protection contract in place? This one you have to ask developer. Most developers don't have that, but I've seen one developer so far send me an email saying they have that contract, deposit protection contract in place. So you check yes, but most times are no. Number 3, contract of purchase and sale. This is part where you fill in your terms and price and everything. This is for the original contract, okay? Number 3 is for original contract. The date. What is the date for your original contract? Amendment and addendum. This one can leave it empty. Upgrades. This one is important. You have to read on the original agreement. There are addendums. Was there any upgrade that's going to be done when the property is going to complete, right? For example, when the first buyer who bought this property, they required upgrade on the island. Maybe this kitchen island costs you $2,000 for upgrade. Or they upgrade the floor from carpet to engineered hardwood. It'll cost another $5,000. So if there's any upgrade, you check on yes. And then upgrade amount, put how much money here. Your buyer, assignee, has to know how much they're spending on total of the property, other than the purchase price. Those are extra. Sometimes could be extra parking, sometimes could be extra locker. So they have to know how much they're spending on top of the original price. So here's the original price. It may be $499,000, and then they have to add whatever upgrade cost to the original price. And over here is the deposit. So we put deposit, how much they have paid for here. Deposit, it means they have already paid, not the deposit they're supposed to pay in total. Because when they do assignment, they may not have paid everything yet. There may be like 5% deposit they still have to pay, right? So in order for your client to make a decision, they have to know how much more they have to pay. They may not have that money. So you have to write here how much they have paid so they can compare to the original agreement, see if that's the total amount they have paid already, or if they're missing a payment or two, okay? Deposit held by. Usually the deposit are held by the developer's lawyer. For Oni, they hold deposit themselves. It's usually Oni Realty, they hold the deposit. Other Realty, they have a lawyer holding the deposit for them. And then is there any deposit secured bond? This one, no. I haven't seen anybody who has a security bond yet. Interest on deposit occurring to. This one you can leave it empty. Most times the interest will be developer's interest, won't be your interest. But now there are a lot of developers who offers interest on your deposit. For example, Lougheed Heights, right? Lougheed, city of Lougheed, they offer 5% deposit interest on the deposit you give it to them. That means you have 5% return on your investment already, even before the completion. The completion is probably 5 to 6 years. So they give you 5% on your deposit, which is really good. It's better than putting money in the bank, right? And plus you get a condo afterwards. Purchase under contract, purchaser. Purchaser, this one is also talking about the interest. So normally it's developer, it's not purchaser. So you have to know whether the interest goes to developer or the purchaser. That you have to ask the developer, right? And then there's another one, developer consent to assignment required. This one is 100% yes. 100% yes for new development. All contract will say on the original contract, you can assign this contract with developer's consent, which means you have to get a letter from developer in order for you to assign this agreement to a third party. and then consent to be obtained by. This is kind of like subject removal date. Okay. Normally, I would put at least 2 to 3 months for this date. Don't put 30 days. You're not gonna get something done in 30 days. Developers are really, really slow. Minimum 60 days for this date. Okay, minimum 60 days. I normally put 90 days, just in case. Developer's fee. This one you can also find from the developer's original agreement. But you have to be really, really careful because I had agreement. It says minimum 1.5%, which means it's not 1.5%. So I called developer, hey, how much is your assignment fee since you said it's minimum 1.5%? So the developer told me it is your profit 30% or 1.5%, whichever is bigger. Okay, that means if you make $100,000, the developer's assignment fee will be 30% of that. Okay, and plus GST. There's GST on top. So you have to read the contract carefully. Some developers have free assignment fee. For example, now, if you go to developer's showroom, you can negotiate a free assignment fee. You can assign to anybody for free because it's hard to sell, right? But normally it's anywhere from 1% to 5% and even 30% on your profit. So make sure you ask developer how much is the assignment fee. Okay. And next page, on page 2, here's the property information. Normally you only have a unit number and you don't have the exact address. So what you put here is the project name. For example, Concord Garden, right? You put 1505 Concord Garden Phase 2. City, Richmond. Postcode, probably you don't have that. But sometimes you can find PID number and legal description on the original agreement. But again, if you don't have that, just leave it empty. Terms, number 5, terms. This is very important. These numbers here, you have to fill in, but they won't add up automatically for you. So 5.1, you have to use a calculator, calculate very careful. The numbers cannot be wrong, okay? So what it is assignment amount. Assignment amount means the deposit plus the profit together. It's called assignment amount. This assignment amount is what your buyer, assignee, pays assignor at the end of the transaction. For example, let's talk about A, reimbursement of deposit paid under contract. So for example, their original purchase price is $1 million, okay? They had to pay 20% deposit up front for you to get assignment. So deposit paid would be $200,000 here, okay? Now I'm gonna put 200,000 here, just, okay, that's 2 million. Okay, 200,000. Balance of assignment amount is your profit. So, for example, there are costs involved. You have to know how much costs are involved so you can calculate the actual profit. So, number 1, there's a commission involved, right? You have to calculate how much commission is involved in this transaction. So, your balance of assignment amount must be more than your commission. Otherwise, they will be losing money, right? And number 2 is the assignment fee, developer assignment fee. You have to add developer assignment fee on top. And number 3 is the lawyer's fee. You have to add lawyer's fee if there's lawyer involved. And number 4, there is GST. This GST is different from the GST when they complete this property. So make sure you tell your client you have to pay GST on top of assignment amount, whatever this amount is, okay? So C is assignment amount plus A and B, which is $400,000. This C is the assignment amount. The 5% is not on 200,000. The assignment amount, the 5% is of the 400,000 actually, $400,000. It's including deposit and your profit together. So which is $20,000. The GST is $20,000. Okay, 5% on the $400,000. $20,000 GST they have to pay. So this $20,000 GST you have to calculate also in this $200,000 profit. So if you miscalculate, they will be missing $20,000 of profit. Maybe they're only making $20,000, and if you miscalculate, they'd be making nothing. Okay? And then D, assignee total purchase price, which is the original price plus B. So for example, the original price is 1 million. You plus that with 1.2 million. So D is original price plus B, this 200,000. So 1.2 million for the total amount. And you had to put here the assignment amount is 400,000. 400,000. This is what your client has to pay to the assignor. Deposit. Normally, deposit we can put 5%. For example, 50,000. 5% of that 1 million is $50,000. We can just put 50,000, and then upon acceptance, so on the acceptance date, they will pay this money into your trust account. So this part is pretty much the same as other CPS. And terms and conditions. So normally for developers, they will not take a subject offer. So before you send this one to the developer asking for consent, you must remove your subject here. For example, some people will put subject to financing. They want to make sure they will get approval for financing before they purchase this agreement. A lot of banks does provide financing approval for pre-sales. They can hold the rate for anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. If you hold it longer, the rate they secure will be a bit higher, but at least you get a security. It doesn't mean you have to use their service at the transaction. It just means they promise when you are doing transaction, they will fund you the money at this rate. Of course, at the transaction 3 years later, and you find another bank which provide a better rate, you can use a different bank for the better rate. So it's always a good idea to get a pre-approval for your client before they enter into agreement. They have to get a financing approval. And then after that, you remove this financing clause here. So now you can send this offer to the developer asking for consent. Assignment amount. This, we normally don't say anything here, just say C addendum. Because normally we put details in the addendum where there are more space, because this, they only give you 3 lines. Yeah, this assignment amount is not a number. If you read here, it says the assignment amount other than the deposit payable under clause 5.2 shall be paid to the stakeholder or the assignee's conveyancer as follows. So this one is telling you how they're going to pay the assignment amount. It's like an instruction how they're going to pay assignment amount. and we go to page 3. Page 3, they will ask you to fill in all this information. Okay. Full legal name, birthday, everything, insurance number, and the tax of residency, are they Canadian or BC tax residency, email address, principal resident address, everything. So now you have to fill in everything for your assignee
On there,
on the contract.
like right here, right?
On the contract, yes. So normally they will have lines. I think at the back here they have some lines for you to fill in. Yeah, here. See? They have lines at the back for you to fill in all the information. This is new after the court case. So now we go to page 5. There is only this closure of agency. So same thing as other CPS, just put your agent. If you're representing assignee, you put it on B. If you're representing assignor, you put on A. And then your client has to initial the box in front of those agencies. And if you're representing the assignor and the buyer does not have an agent, do not put no agency here and sign here, okay? There is a box where it says here, if only A has been completed, then the buyer has the initial here. They have the initial D. I see people miss that. Make sure they initial D if they're unrepresented party. 5.25, here is same as other CPS, where you put offer open date and time. Offer open date and time. Assignee, buyer signatures, they have the initial if they're Canadian citizen or permanent resident. For assignor, same thing, they have the initial if they're Canadian or not. For tax defined. So resident of Canada, non-resident of Canada as defined under Income Tax Act. So this one when you initial, you have to be careful. If you're Canadian, but you don't pay tax here and you don't live here, then you have to initial here. Okay? Even you're Canadian citizen, you're non-tax resident, then you initial here. If you pay tax here, you live here, you're Canadian resident, then you initial on this side. Okay? Again, same thing for assignor. Sign here. So page 7, it says developer's consent. Okay, this is the page where you're asking the developer to sign. So you put all the information for assignee, their name and everything. And there's a part if they're asking for the their what they do, their occupation. Make sure you don't say manager. Manager is position, not occupation. Okay, make sure you're saying my occupation is engineer, mechanical engineer, or architect, or I'm a home inspector, I'm a realtor. Don't say I'm a clerk or I'm a manager. That's not occupation. They will send it back for you to redo it again. Again, that's time wasting. Okay, and if you miss the deadline, they may not want you to assign anymore. And then you come to the last page. Page 8 is where the assignee and the assignor sign. Assignor signs here, the date, assignor. Assignee signs here. And lastly, developer, they will sign here. For smaller developers, they will use your agreement for assignment. They will just sign this one and send it back to you. A lot of bigger developers, other than this contract, they will have a different contract, their own version of assignment contract. And you have to fill in that contract, get both parties to sign, and email back to the developer. And on their agreement, they have further details of the project. and also asking more information of both assignor and assignee. They have to fill in all their name, phone number, email, social insurance number, where they pay tax, and everything else, a lot of details, and which is required by the CRA. So there's a lot more information you have to provide.
When do you get that?
After you send this agreement to developer, they will send everything back to you saying, please fill in all this information. And then after that, you fill in everything, you send it back to the developer, and developer will sign and email you back. And normally, they will ask a copy of your client's ID. If they're Canadian citizen, you can email them a copy of your driver license. If they're foreigner, like for example, they're from China, then you have to email two things: passport, a copy of the passport, and a copy of their identification card, Chinese identification card. So 2 items. And for Chinese people, they will still ask you for tax of residency and tax number. Okay, the tax residency you will say China, and tax number is actually the number of their personal identification number. The number on the ID. In China, that is your tax number, in case you don't know that. So you just put the PID number of Chinese ID, the number on the bottom, and copy it into the agreement. And that is the tax number for Chinese people. For different country, we'll have different rules, so you have to ask your client what's your tax number. So normally in the addendum, we have some terms. Normally I put in. The first one says, further to the assignment contract purchase and sale dated so-and-so, made between A and B, right? Assignee and assignor, and the covering the above mentioned property, the undersigned party hereby agree as follows: assignment, the assignee and the assignor hereby acknowledge and agree that the assignment payment amount by way of bank draft to be made to Presale West Coast Realty in trust 1 business day after offer being accepted. And then both parties authorize Presale West Coast Realty to release the assignment amount payment to the assignor, deducting the following commission 3 business days after developer's acceptance or full assignment is made, whichever date is later. And then the agent would be your name, and commission would be whatever you calculated. The assignees are aware that the original contract is subject to GST and property transfer tax. The assignee is aware of the foreign buyer's tax rate is 20% of the purchase price. Of course, the 20% is based on the original price. It's not based on the purchase price you made today. Okay, it's on the original price. And also GST is also on the original price. The assignee is aware of the assignment fee is 2%. This part you can modify depending on the developer, whatever they charge. The assignee is aware of the extra cost of upgrade for how much amount. The assignee is aware of extra cost of a storage, how much, and parking, how much. Assignee is aware of the vendor's credit upon closing, because sometimes there are credit for developers giving to the buyer. Some agreement, especially Concord Pacific agreement, they will say if you assign this agreement to a third party, the credit will be gone. No more credit. But for most developers, they don't say that. They will promise you to give you $10,000 back credit at completion, right? They will keep that. So make sure you read on the agreement if the credit will be gone after assignment or not. So here, you have to let the assignee know. So in the future, assignee thought, oh, I thought when you tell me this one, there's a $15,000 credit upon completion. But after I got it, there's no more credit. What happened to my $15,000, right? Yes, they call different names.
Okay.
Sometimes they call decoration allowance, sometimes they call moving allowance, sometimes they just call credit. So all GST apply before credit. So CRA won't be collecting less money. They will always collect more money, right? And then the next one, the assignee has been given the opportunity to review the original contract, the floor plan, color scheme, disclosure, and amendment before signing this agreement. So this is again to make sure they have already know everything before they enter the agreement. In the event that the vendor does not accept this assignment by a date, this is kind of like the subject removal date, then all parties agree to void this contract mutually, and deposit paid will be released to the assignee upon request of the assignee's agent. Both parties agree it is a assignor's responsibility to pay for developer's assignment fee. So in an assignment, purchase and sale, everything has to be clearly spelled out. Otherwise, there will be a conflict saying, who's going to pay for developer's assignment fee? I thought the buyer's going to pay for it. I thought the seller's going to pay for it, right? Who's going to pay for it? This is very, very tricky here. Okay, and plus, you should also say here about the GST, right? Sometimes you would say the assignor is aware of the GST and given the opportunity for legal advice, they have asked their accountant regarding GST. So you have to write everything in the addendum. Otherwise, in the future, they will say, hey, the assignment amount is supposed to be paid now, but you never said anything about payment for assignment amount in agreement. So that means you can pay today, you can pay 5 days later, you can pay 10 days later, right? There's no date of payment. The good thing is, on the agreement here, there's a choice. You can also make this part. This is on the agreement page 3. Page 3, 5.8. So, release of assignment amount. How are you going to release it? They have 3 standards for you. A, B, C, and D. If you choose D, everything's written in addendum. Or you can choose A, B, or C. So part A, option A, is assignment amount released on submission of registration. This is very good for buyer because you don't pay the assignment amount until the project is completed and registered into your name. Option B is the seller's especially preferred payment because they can get all the money upfront when they remove the subject. That means when they get developer's consent, they will be able to get all their money. So that's option B. Option C is like half and half. Option C says portion of the assignment amount released on the subject removal day, balance released on submission of registration. That means half and half. So option C is more fair to both parties, right? So depending on your situation, you have to make an offer on either option A, B, or C. Option B is really in favor of the seller. For example, if they paid you the money already, right? They paid assignor the money, but at the end, they weren't able to complete. They weren't able to get their mortgage, so they gave up the contract. And in the original agreement, it says if you assign this one to a third party, the assignor still liable to complete if the assignee is in the default, right? That means it's good for your seller. They got their profit and they got their deposit back. And plus, they got a condo, which has been paid for already, partially. Now, you have enough money to complete on the condo. It's really good for the seller, assignor, right? So if you have a client who have option B, if the assignee default, it's actually good for the seller. A is opposite, right? If you assignor sell to assignee weren't able to complete and they didn't pay you anything, so you still have to complete. And if you cannot complete, you lose everything. Deposit will be gone. You lose everything because the buyer has never paid you anything. Deposit goes to developer because developer has to sell this property to someone else, right? No, because assignee who you sold it to default. Now you cannot complete, you default. So the money goes to like upper party. Yeah. So everybody lose. So portion C, option C is half and half or portion, right? You decide how much money you pay to the assignor and how much money you pay after completion. Any questions so far? Okay, so that's everything for assignment agreement. So let's summarize. Number one, very important, GST on the assignment amount. And number two, make sure you fill in everything, all the detailed information for your clients, both assignor and assignee. And number three, make sure which option is right for your client. And number four is make sure you have everything clearly spelled out in your addendum. All the terms, everything clearly. This is my template. Yeah, so when you're using someone else's template, make sure you read everything. Make sure that situation is suitable for you. Don't just copy and paste, you will kill yourself. Yeah, don't copy and paste. The assignment amount will be deposit. The assignment amount only can be zero, cannot be a minus. The profit can be a minus, but assignment amount can be zero, which means they only, or even the deposit can be less too. For example, deposit should be $200,000. The deposit will become, let's say, $100,000 plus zero assignment amount. Now the assignee only pays assignor $100,000 instead of $200,000. So that means they lose a lot of money, right? So you have to calculate whatever your client's willing to go, right? For example, if they don't willing to go like $100,000, they lose $400,000. They don't get anything back. But even they got $100,000 back, they still have to pay GST on the $100,000 to CRA, right? They still lose more money. And I have seen deals that people put zero on deposit and zero on profit. They're just willing to let it go. Anybody who willing to take over, just take over. At least they're off the hook for other stuff, liabilities. But normally nobody would do that because they rather give it back to the developer because they lost everything.
Where do you find the assignment opportunities?
Well, assignments are normally not allowed for advertising. There's only a few on MLS which they got an approval letter for you to put on MLS for advertising. Normally, all developers will ask you to talk to your client or talk to the agent who you know, ask them if they have assignment or assignment opportunity. Some developers, they have a rule saying if the assignor is a foreigner, you can only assign to foreigner. But That's because of tax purpose. Because who assignor bought this property, they have to pay 20% foreign tax, right? So CRA would be collecting that money. So they would be able to assign to assignor, assignee who is only foreigner. So they can continue to collect this 20% tax. Because some people are trying to avoid this tax, finding a friend who's Canadian. They assign this property to their friend to avoid this 20%. That's everything. Thank you.
大家好，我是温哥华地产经纪周华。喜欢我的视频，不要忘了分享和订阅，谢谢。